Well, I'd like to welcome everybody inside Mission Control. We're pleased to be joined this morning by Gennaro Caliendo. Gennaro is based at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. He is the partner manager for the Commercial Crew Program for Boeing, one of the three partners in the Commercial Crew Integrated Capability Contract, or not really contract, but Space Act agreements,
Right.
I guess. We're continuing with that. And that was just awarded in early August. Gennaro, welcome to Mission Control. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Kyle.
Gennaro comes to NASA, I guess, from years of working in the aerospace business down at the Kennedy Space Center. He started out, hails from Long Island area of New York, and
Right.
had a big interest in aerospace, and a friend suggested that there might be some openings down in Florida, and that's how you ended up with NASA, right?
Yeah, that's good memory, Kyle. That was a while back we had that discussion. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Gennaro, we talked back in March when there were 7 partners under the previous Commercial Crew Development Space Act agreements, right? And of course, now the program's whittled that down to the 3 that we're working with now, and you retain the role of a partner manager with Boeing,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the reasons that Gennaro's here, and I'll let you talk about this, is you're having kickoff meetings starting actually today with Boeing here in Houston, and the whole team has assembled here, right?
That's correct. We're all here. We got in here last night, and we're looking forward to a good review starting this morning for the next 3 days.
Well, talk about what that review is all about, and I assume that all the partners are going to do that. And in fact, we are going to have conversations with the 3 partner managers. Gennaro happens to be going first because he's got to get to the meetings, and so we're going to visit with you first. But talk a little bit about this whole project this week.
Sure. So Boeing doesn't really do a kickoff per se, Kyle. It's basically a continuation of their program baseline plan. So up next for them is a meeting called the Integrated System Review, and essentially what it does is it sets the baseline that they're going to be using over the next 21 months of this ICAP period. And what it's doing is it's comparing how well their baseline design is meeting up with their requirements, and then any points of departure that they need to have from this point forward, that the improvements to their design or things that they need to fix. And that's essentially what we're doing this week, and hopefully we'll have a good, successful review with them.
Talk a little bit about how you were structured, at least from the partner manager standpoint, under the CCDev 2 part of this, and now under the new program.
Right, under CCDev 2, we were mostly focused on accomplishing the task of providing insight and guidance against Boeing's design and their requirements. For ICAP, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of focus a little bit more on that part of it as it becomes a more integrated vehicle, but also looking at certification requirements. And so what we've done in our partner integration team is actually created 2 legs of that. So we have I have a deputy, Bill Lane, that works for me. He will be handling most of the ICAP work, which is the Space Act agreement, and then John McKinney, who also was working in the program as well before, he will be handling more of the certification issues as it pertains to NASA type requirements and how well Boeing is achieving or accomplishing their goals that meet our requirements.
How big is your team? I mean, obviously it's larger now, probably on the NASA side than it was under CCDev 2, right?
Right, it is. We've effectively doubled the size of our team, our small partner integration team. Of course, we're pulling from resources throughout engineering, safety, health and medical, and we have reps on the team from all those different categories that I just described, and they're pulling from a pool of resources here at the Johnson Space Center, at the Kennedy Space Center, as well as the Marshall Space Flight Center, depending on the expertise that we're looking for.
Just to refresh for those that may be new to Commercial Crew Program, at least following it, Talk a little bit about Boeing's contribution. It's obviously they have a capsule design, but it's very robust, and they've made a lot of progress through the early stages, and now we're here.
Yeah, sure. Boeing is producing the CST 100. It's a, as you said, it's a capsule design. It will be launched on a Atlas V for right now. That's what they've contracted for. Um, it will fly up into low Earth orbit and then rendezvous for us, we hope, with the International Space Station, and then re-enter similarly to any other spacecraft, but instead of, as in the shuttle, instead of landing on wheels, it's going to actually use parachutes like the old Apollo style. The really interesting thing about the way they're going to do it is they're actually going to land on land using airbags. Some of the things within CCDEV2 that they did was to prove out some of these concepts, what they considered high-risk areas. One of them being airbag technology to make sure that they could actually land safely on airbags.
Right.
The other one was parachutes to make sure the parachutes would work. They also had on this vehicle, just like all the other partners, they're having to produce a launch escape system. And so they tested out some of those brand new motors with their subcontractors, and then some maneuvering engines for in space as well. So they were attempting to retire a lot of high risk areas under CCDEV2, and now under ICAP they're going to push that technology a little bit further along.
Right. Talk a little bit about since you've worked so closely with Boeing through CCDEV2. Y'all's comfort factor, I guess, in working together. It obviously gets better and better in terms of the integration between the. I mean, Boeing's no stranger to working with NASA anyway, right? So,
right.
But obviously, y'all are getting much more comfortable working closely together. That's probably part of why you retain your role working with Boeing as the partner manager.
Yeah, we've had a good relationship. I think for us it's more an evolution on both sides, actually. Boeing and NASA both are, as we talked about last time, are in a new kind of environment, and we continue to evolve as we try and figure out exactly what our roles are. This is a learning process for both of us. We continue to kind of maneuver or reshape our teams on both sides to try and get the most effective results out of both sides, and we provide a little bit more guidance nowadays than we did on the front end. And Boeing, of course, they're a very capable corporation, and they've got very capable people. A lot of them are shuttle heritage people, and so they know the kinds of questions to ask, and we also have the right people on our side to kind of help get them the answers when we can.
Right. We're talking with Gennaro Caliendo. Gennaro is the partner manager for NASA in terms of the commercial crew program with Boeing, and he's here in town in Houston for a series of meetings to basically get started with the CCiCAP, which is Commercial Crew Integrated Capability. Boeing was awarded $460 million as part of this this latest development as part of the stepping stones to get to flight in a few years. And you already talked a little bit about what was accomplished in CCDEV2.
Right.
Obviously, there's a whole series of new milestones,
Correct.
or maybe not new, but a set of different milestones that have to be worked out. And talk a little bit about how it's structured in terms of getting to that. You said 21 months, right?
21 months, yeah, the base period, 21 months. We had within our request for proposals, I guess, I'm probably not using the right term, but we had a request that all these partners get to a critical design review level within their design. So in this area here, Boeing is taking stepping stones to get to that point. There's 19 milestones. The next couple coming up here are the production design review. This is where they're taking and looking at the design on paper and then seeing if they can actually produce it and all of the equipment and things that are needed to produce this design. And then after that, we'll step into a phase 1 safety review, and that's where they're looking at the preliminary design review products that were produced under CCDEV2, and then doing the initial hazards and causes, and then the controls that they have in place to see how adequate they are, and then see if there's any things that they need to do to improve the design to prevent these hazards from occurring. Now, there's a bunch of other milestones over the next 21 months,
Right.
and I guess we'll have a chance to talk more about them in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. I know you already kind of touched on this, but you said back in March that this was a new world for both NASA and
Right.
Boeing, even though they work closely together
Right.
on other contracts. You think it's still a new world, or have we gotten a little bit past that? We still got a ways to go.
I think we talked about it a little bit ago. It is still new. We are getting a lot more comfortable working in this environment, both sides. There's still a few growing pains to go. Sharing data is really important when it comes to this type of business. We have a lot of expertise on the NASA side that we can share from other programs. Shuttle, Orion is one where this particular partner benefits quite a bit from. The problem we have sometimes is how to do that exactly, and we're still learning that process. We've been working pretty closely with the folks at Orion, and they try and get them to work with us, and they've been pretty good about helping when they can. Of course, there are certain rules and regulations and restrictions about how that data can go back and forth from not just NASA to Boeing, but NASA to all these commercial partners or to any commercial entity. So we're learning there. Boeing is really eager to get some of that data. We are eager to help them with that data. We don't certainly want to go reinvent the wheel if we've already produced it for other programs. And so that's where I think we continue to learn how to work in that environment.
Well, all of that previous knowledge from all those other programs, shuttle, station even, certainly helps with regard to all of that activity.
Yeah.
And of course, that's one of the reasons that Gennaro's here with the whole team is to get all that work started and get more and more comfortable working together and get started with all these milestones. And so we'll let you go and get started with all that. And we really appreciate you coming by and joining us here in the station flight control room, because obviously one of the goals is for Boeing to hopefully send that capsule with crew members from U.S. soil to the International Space Station to make it even more robust in terms of crew transport. So, Gennaro, we really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Gennaro Caliendo, he is the partner manager for Boeing for NASA's Commercial Crew Program.